You know what I noticed is missing from Baldur's Gate 3? Harry Potter. I haven't been able to find a single Harry Potter build video out there, so today I'm going to show you one myself. I'm going to show you a build for Sirius Black, the elusive uncle to Harry Potter. First, we're going to start with appearance, and then we'll dive into the build. Chapter markers will be in the description. What you're seeing here is the finished appearance for Sirius Black, so let me walk you through those options. We're going to skip over class, cantrip, spells, ability points, etc. for now, as I will be doing that in the second part of the video. But one thing you do need to start him off with is race should be human and background should be criminal. Also, he should be a male, of course, with body type 2. Now let's go into appearance. To start with, I would recommend choosing voice 5, as I think it is closest to that of the actor for Sirius Black, Gary Oldman. And since that's the only voice we have to go on, I figured that's what we would choose. Next, we need to choose his face, and I felt that head 4 was the closest to the structure. Again, we're using the actor for Sirius Black as a blueprint here. Skin color, I recommend using neutral tone 1 if you're trying to build a Sirius Black who looks like he hasn't just gotten out of Azkaban, but if you prefer to make him look as pallid as he was when breaking out of prison and on the run, then you can use pallid tone 1. For the options here below the different scars, I recommend leaving everything alone for freckles and vitiligo, as they are not relevant to the character, but I would increase the maturity scale to about 50%, so we can start to see those lines forming on the face. You can skip over body art. Unfortunately, any art that Sirius has on him is not on the face, so this isn't going to do us any good. Skip on over to eyes. We know from the description in the Harry Potter books that he has gray eyes, so just choose gray 1 in there. For makeup, it's certainly not necessary, but I found that using makeup setting 12, color black, and putting the intensity up to about 25% gives a bit of a shadowed look to his eyes, which I think is appropriate. I wouldn't bother with the lip tint, however. For hair, I found that the best looking setting is Willow Tears. We also know from the description in the Harry Potter books that Sirius Black had long black hair. So choose Willow Tears for the hairstyle, black neutral for the hair color, and if you'd like to make it more interesting, you can throw in some highlights. I'd recommend brown 3, and some graying, which I would recommend gray neutral 3 with an intensity of 40%, therefore just giving him a little bit more of a weathered look. Remember, he's broke out of a terrible prison. And then on to facial hair. This one is trickier. There doesn't seem to be anything that's quite a match to what we see for the actors playing Sirius Black, but I felt this one was pretty close, and this is called Roguish. And that'll do it for the appearance part. So now let's get into the build itself. Okay, so for the purposes of the character build, I am using Gale because in my single player game, he is level 12, and I'd like to walk through the entirety of the build. So we're just going to pretend that Gale is Sirius Black right now. So what you're going to start with is the wizard class. And what you're going to choose for your 3 starting cantrips are going to be Light, Mage Hand, and Firebolt. These are the closest options to spells that are available in the Harry Potter universe. Light, that's an easy one, right? We know that people use Lumos all the time, lighting their wand so that they can see the way. Firebolt, which is a stand-in for Incendio, and Mage Hand doesn't really have a good stand-in, to be honest, but it seems to work in terms of flavor. Now for starting spells, you're going to choose Disguise Self, Featherfall, Expeditious Retreat, Magic Missile, Shield, and Sleep. Now the reason for these choices, Disguise Self is something they can definitely do in the Harry Potter world. There is something called the Polyjuice Potion that can completely make you change your appearance as long as you have something from the person you are trying to look like. Featherfall is kind of a stand-in for levitation. Expeditious Retreat, there's not really a spell in the Harry Potter universe that I could find that does this, but it's really more about the character of Sirius Black and how his ability to turn into a dog can give him a lot more speed than the average person. Magic Missile is just a nice stand-in for the standard attacks that a wand does. Shield is a stand-in for the spell Protego, they do the same thing, and then Sleep is a stand-in for Bewitched Sleep. As for the starting ability points, this is certainly not down to a science, but this is how I imagine it would end up looking like for someone like Sirius Black. A strength of 10, so average, dexterity and constitution of 14, so a bit above average, intelligence of 17, so well above average, wisdom of 12, so just slightly above average, and then charisma 8, slightly below average. Now granted, these ability points are based on a Sirius Black build who has already been deemed a criminal, has already broken out of prison, and has already gotten back to the Black household. So the charisma is down because he is deemed a criminal and a lot of people are fearful of him. That's the reasoning behind having a low charisma score. A little bit of a higher wisdom score because at this point in his life he's learned quite a bit. He's been exposed to quite a bit. Strength is a little bit down because he's not as strong as he used to be. He's not as wily as he used to be after all that time in prison. And then intelligence very high because he got out of Azkaban. That takes a pretty smart person, right? Also, intelligence is the primary stat for wizards, which is what Sirius Black is. And you can see where I assigned the bonuses, the +2 under intelligence and the +1 under dexterity. I can't show you exactly what the skill proficiencies would look like since Gale has a different background than what we would choose for Sirius Black, but if possible, I would recommend putting points into Arcana, Investigation, Insight, and Survival. Now for our level 2 selections, we need to choose what subclass we're going to have in our next 2 spells. I recommend a subclass of transmutation as it seems the closest to what is usually used in the Harry Potter universe. You'll also see that one of the subclass features here is experimental alchemy, so that is flavorful. For the first 2 spells for wizard level 2, we'll choose protection from good and evil and Longstrider. The choices of protection from good and evil and Longstrider are really more about the flavor of the character than the Harry Potter universe itself. So protection from evil and good due to Sirius Black's character and the protection he provides his friends and family, and Longstrider again having to do with his ability to shapeshift into a dog. When we get to level 3, it is time to multi-class. We will be multi-classing into Druid, and this is so that he can get access to shape-shifting since he is an animagus. So for the Druid, your first 2 cantrips can be Thorn Whip and Produce Flame, which seem to be the closest to any spells available in the Harry Potter universe. And then you're going to take 1 more level in Druid so that you can get access to the shape-shifting. Your subclass will be Circle of the Moon, and you will see down here that you get access to Wild Shape Wolf, which is the closest shapeshift you can get to in Baldur's Gate 3. Also, by taking Circle of the Moon, you don't have to take any more Druid spells. And now at level 5, you're going to return to the Wizard class, and your spells are going to be Misty Step and Knock. Now, these do fit better into the Harry Potter universe, as Misty Step can be a good stand-in for Apparate or Disapparate, depending on how you're looking at it, and Knock can be a good stand-in for Alberto or Alohomora. Moving on to level 6, we're going to continue to stay in Wizard. The cantrip that we'll choose this time will be Minor Illusion, as it is the closest to anything in the Harry Potter universe out of all the choices available here. For the next spells, we will grab Hold Person and Enlarge and Reduce. These can stand in for a couple spells. Hold Person can stand in for Stupefy, and Enlarge Reduce can stand in for Engorgio and Reducto. It's also time to grab our first feat, so we will grab Savage Attacker. When making melee weapon attacks, you roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result. Although Sirius Black is a wizard and therefore will mostly be using his magic, he is definitely definitely not a stranger to having to get his hands dirty, and he's a bit of a beast when it comes to protecting those he loves. All right, next level. The spells we are going to be grabbing are Blink and Counterspell, and these fit really nicely into the Harry Potter universe, as again, in relation to Apparate, Blink can stand in for that, and there is actually a counterspell in the Harry Potter universe called Finite Incantatem. Next level, the spells we will choose are Slow and Arcane Lock. Now granted, the spells that I am grabbing could be grabbed in a slightly different order. This is just the way I'm doing them, but you can see that sometimes I'm going back and grabbing earlier spells. So whichever order you want to do them in is fine. The slow spell is a stand-in for the spell called Impedimenta, and Arcane Lock just kind of makes sense. If you're able to magically unlock things, then you're also able to magically lock things. All right, the spells we're going to take for this level are Flight and Fear. Flight is in there as a stand-in for brooms or magical creatures such as hippogriffs that allow you to fly. There's nothing like that in Baldur's Gate, so we're just going to use the spell Grant Flight. Fear is standing in for Expelliarmus here. Expelliarmus, if you recall, is a disarming spell. It's made to make the spellcaster drop their wand. Now, Fear obviously has a little bit more going on with it, but the idea is the same. It makes the target drop their weapon. Okay, next up for spells is Greater Invisibility and Polymorph. Greater Invisibility because we know there are magical objects such as the Invisibility Cloak that will allow you to traverse unseen. And then Polymorph because we know that is a thing. We saw Mad-Eye Moody turn one of the students into a ferret. And then for our second feat, we are going to choose Sentinel. The reason for Sentinel is because it gives us the ability to use a reaction when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, so it's a retaliation, and it also gives advantage on opportunity attacks. I think this is good for the flavor of the Sirius character, that if somebody were going after Harry Potter, for instance, he's probably going to react to that and make an attack against them. All right, for level 11, the two spells that we are going to take are Banishment and Confusion. The reason for those choices is there is actually something called a Banishing Charm in the world of Harry Potter, so you can actually temporarily banish someone. Maybe not to the same extreme as this. And then for Confusion, that is a stand-in for the spell Confundo. And the final level, level 12, the highest you can get in Baldur's Gate 3. Your final cantrip will be True Strike. Honestly, none of the cantrips at this point are really very fitting into the Harry Potter universe, so we're just going to use True Strike, gain advantage on your next attack roll. That can be more flavorful to the character. And then the final two spell slots I recommend are Dominate Person and Telekinesis. Telekinesis is a stand-in for the spell Ascendio, which gives the spellcaster the ability to move someone else up into the air. And then Dominate Person is a stand-in for one of the unforgivable curses, Imperium. If you recall in book 4, Mad-Eye Moody is showing them the different unforgivable curses, and he uses Imperio on a spider to control it. I do have a couple more suggestions for you if you want to build upon this. Spells that you can learn via scroll to make him even more serious-like would be Silence, which can stand in for Silencio, See Invisibility, which can stand in for Revelio, and Crown of Madness, which is really just a flavor pick, because honestly, Sirius Black kind of lost his mind a bit after his time in Azkaban. I hope you've enjoyed this build video. If you have, please leave a comment, let me know if there's any builds you would like to see, and please join me for the next BG3 build coming up, which will be Drizzt from the Forgotten Realms series. Thanks for watching!